Okay, girls. So, as I said, welcome back, everybody, and happy new year. I feel like it has been so long since I've seen you all, but thank you so much for joining. And we're on module 3 of our female health presentation. So, this evening we're going to be talking about birth control and some common conditions. So, birth control obviously is a huge area. We're going to be talking more specifically around all things kind of the pill, because I know that's usually the most common that some of us are on. And then we're going to look at some common conditions like PCOS, endo, and then just kind of general PMS symptoms and how we can deal with those and reduce them a little bit through things like obviously like lifestyle and diet. Obviously with birth control, like this is an issue and a topic that is so vast, and there's still so much research to be done on it, because obviously there are so many different types. There's so many different symptoms that people experience and females experience. Every female is completely different in terms of our genetic makeup, and the way that you metabolize and synthesize one type of pill, another female is going to do that completely differently. So it all depends on obviously your genetic makeup. So obviously trying to research that in control studies is extremely difficult. Now, obviously we are seeing more come out of this in terms of both research on hormonal contraceptives and female health. But again, it's very much in its infancy. Like I talked about in our previous lectures, like the research is still very much in its infancy, because I'm just going to like Tori in there, because the male body has always been predominantly the one that's used in biomedical research when it comes to human studies and animal studies. And then it's just simply applied to women. So it has been that way for a long time. It is starting to get better, but there needs to be, more done, and that's another conversation for another time. Like for example, in the UK, there's only 2.5% of publicly funded research put into reproductive research, even though 1 in 3 females will experience like a gynae issue or a reproductive issue. So you can tell it's a very small amount put into kind of research, but as I said, it is getting better. And as I said, it's a conversation for another time. But tonight we're going to discuss some things around hormonal birth control and those common conditions. So with hormonal birth control, like this is a huge topic, and a vast majority of us will have either been on hormonal birth control at some stage or are currently on it. And when it was brought about back in like the 50s and 60s, it was a huge thing for obviously female rights, because it was the first time that we had control over our reproductive rights. So it was incredible. And I want to kind of put not like a little disclaimer, like I'm in no way against the pill or hormonal birth control, like not at all, because at the end of the day, it's a really effective way of contraception. It's one of the easiest forms of contraception, but we're just not given a lot of the information around it. When we are put on it, we're not, told which one might be best suited for us, depending on our genetic makeup, depending on our history. And at the end of the day, like when we look at things like the pill, it's basically hormone replacement therapy. Like it's basically the same as a steroid that, men will be on for bodybuilding, and women as well. And you'll never see someone put a male or female on steroids without giving them lots of advice around it. So, maybe when you're on this, you can't, smoke, you need to do this, or let's look at your genetic history to see which is going to suit you, or even blood work. Like there'll be very few athletes and people in general who will go on steroids or be put on steroids without getting a full kind of blood panel done first. So when we look at it compared to the pill, and I know you've all probably experienced the same as me, you'll go in, you'll literally be handed over. That's really it. It's like come back in maybe 3 months to check your blood pressure, and that's it. So we're just going to kind of go through a few patterns that we can look at. And as I said, it's such a big topic. Like I, in no means know absolutely every single thing about every single hormonal birth control, but we're going to look at some patterns, and hopefully you'll be able to kind of see which ones are potentially best for you and how you can actually support yourself from the inside out if you are in hormonal birth control, even if you're potentially thinking of coming off it, what to do there. And we're going to kind of talk through things there. So as always, any questions, pop them in the chat, or just feel free to kind of unmute as I go through. So this is the table of hormonal contraceptive types. It can look a bit confusing, but we're going to go through it. So basically with hormonal contraceptives, they come in generations. So the first being obviously kind of the oldest, and then we go through to the fourth as they've kind of progressed throughout the years. Now, as I was saying in previous lectures, some pills and contraceptives will put you into more of like a luteal physiological state. Some will put you into more of a follicular. So we're going to go through each one and just kind of talk through them so you have a bit of an idea as to what's going on with each one. So with the first generation, this is going to be things like your mini pill, which is really popular, and also the depot injection. So I'm not sure if the depot is still as popular, because a lot of research came out about that a few years ago, which it had like the highest risk for blood clots and cancer risks and things like that. Is there anybody that's on depot or knows anybody that's on it? I'm not sure if it's as popular as what it maybe used to be. Or like a one or something in the chat, or feel free to unmute. Be helpful if I could find. Oh, there's the chat box. A couple of girls on the team who have depot. Yeah, I'm on the depot. Yeah, Emily, how do you find it? Do you find any side effects with it, or? She's on the train. I know you're James. Sorry, don't you don't have to unmute. Don't worry, I'll get it after. But depot is that one, and also the mini pill. So those are the first generation, and they're going to be progestin and estrogen combined. So they're going to more put you into that kind of like luteal physiology, which is when we go back to our kind of lectures on menstrual cycle. That luteal phase is when we can experience more kind of like PMS symptoms and things like that. Now, as I said, like every single female is going to metabolize these completely differently. So you're going to have different symptoms depending on your makeup. Currently finding that I'm still bleeding out. Yeah, and like that's going to be the same with a lot of these contraceptives. Like it can take a while for them to settle in as well, and for your hormones to actually kind of like regulate around them. Then we're going on to kind of the second generation. Now this one's going to be quite popular as well. So this is your implant. I've had experience with the implant, and I know it's quite a popular one as well, because like that, you don't have to remember to take it. It's obviously you get it changed every 3 years. But this one has quite high androgenic effects. So I'm going to show you like first-hand experience of when I was on it and some pictures as well, because this is where when you go into the GP, like they need to be asking obviously about your history, like if you've struggled maybe with acne before, if you've had bloods done and your androgens are already quite high, because this one does have quite a high androgenic profile. So you're going to get like oilier skin, you're going to get oilier hair. It's not going to just, ramp up the testosterone massively and allow you to get absolutely jacked, unfortunately, but you are going to get all those side effects that come with higher androgens. And this is where if you do have something like PCOS, like going on the implant is going to be a no for you, because you already potentially have those higher androgens. You don't want to be then adding to those. So just to kind of keep that a note there as well. Now, I'm pretty sure a GP will know that if you haven't diagnosed PCOS, that's not going to be an option for you. But sometimes it's just good to kind of know that yourself. Then we move into the third generation. Now with this one, I'm not sure of any of the brand names, but with your contraceptive, so it's going to be the progestin that changes with whatever one you're on. So if you can kind of go in and look at the progestin that is in your contraceptive, you'll be able to see which generation it is. But this one has quite low androgenic effects, and opposite to the first two, it's going to potentially put you into more of a follicular phase. So with these ones, you might experience a little bit more water retention as you would in that kind of follicular phase of a normal cycle. Then we're going into the fourth generation. So again, this one's quite popular. So this will be ones like Yasmin, Dianette, if anybody remembers that. I was on that when I was younger. And these are very popular for skin issues. So if you go to the doctor, when I did, I was 14, these are usually the ones you'll be put on, because as you can see, they're quite anti-androgenic. So they're going to kind of like help reduce any higher androgens that you may have. So not that I would say going on the pill is the solution for PCOS or endo or anything like that, but sometimes some girls want to just go on the pill to kind of alleviate some of their symptoms, and that's absolutely fine. You can go on that as a way to manage things while you're working on the things underneath, so like lifestyle and diet factors. So that could be a good option for someone, as I said, with PCOS who already has those higher androgens. Now when we look at things like the Mirena and the copper IUD, these ones can be seen as like the best of, not a bad bunch, But in terms of ovulation, if you still want to be able to ovulate and things like that, obviously the copper IUD has no hormones in it. It can be quite sore to get in, so that's obviously a downside. And it is supposed to be fine for ovulation. Same with the Mirena. I think it's said that after a year, and you're still able to ovulate on it, and it doesn't really affect you systemically. So it's not breaking down that pathway that we talked about before from brain to ovaries. It is preventing you from getting pregnant, but it's not stopping that system, which can be a plus as well if you still want to be able to produce like your normal hormones and everything like that. Now, with the actual pill itself, so there's always questions around, you know, am I going to put on weight? How is it going to affect me? And again, as I said, it's going to affect every female completely differently. And this is where I think there needs to be a little bit more like background study done with each individual. So there were 49 studies done around kind of like weight gain and metabolism. And there was actually no like conclusive evidence to say that, you know, one's going to make you put on weight, one's going to, reduce your metabolism. It's very, very person dependent. And this is why the research and studies are so difficult to come by, because there's so many different types and everyone responds to them differently. Some women reported that they maybe had a few cravings and maybe like water retention as well. So similar to obviously when you have your cycle. And what I would say is, and I know I said this in previous modules, make sure you are tracking your cycle. So even if you are on contraceptives and you know when your withdrawal bleeds come, and even if you don't take a withdrawal bleed, like just tracking and kind of noticing patterns throughout that cycle is going to be so beneficial, because if you can kind of see, okay, before your withdrawal bleed, you're feeling a little bit more watery, or you have more cravings, or you're noticing things with your mood, it's just going to allow you to see those patterns and then obviously work with your body depending on you. So if you're not already tracking your cycle in some way, shape, or form, I would definitely suggest you do. So it doesn't have to be in depth. You can literally do it on any of your apps. You can write it down if you want to, like day one of your withdrawal day, and just go through it like that and start to notice little patterns for you and yourself. The only way then you can actually know how you're metabolizing your own kind of contraceptive and what way it's working for you is to get a blood test done. And again, like GPs are very reluctant to do a full hormone panel. So it's probably something obviously you'll have to pay for. And I know a lot of people aren't going to go and get a full hormone panel done just to see how their pill is affecting them. But if it is something you did want to get done, you can do it. And even though like a few doctors will say like, oh, there's no point in getting bloods done because, you know, you're taking the synthetic hormones, but your body is metabolizing them completely differently. So it's good to see kind of where your androgen levels are, where your estrogen levels are, and then being able to kind of go forward from there and see which one you should potentially be on. Again, some studies say that the pill can help build muscle. Some studies say that it will break it down. And again, the only way that you can kind of see how that's affecting you is getting a full blood panel done. Again, I'm not suggesting everybody has to go and get a full blood panel done. Absolutely not. I think just kind of knowing what way you react to your contraceptive and how it affects you is definitely the first step. And then if you did want to go further, you absolutely can. Any questions or takeaways so far? All good? Okay. Let me just make sure I have the chat bar up there, girls, so I can even see if there's a writing question. I'll pop it over the other side 1 sec. There we go. Okay, so before we move on, a little bit of backstory. Actually, I'll go to the next one, then I'll give you the backstory. With the pills, so there is research obviously to say that it can affect us, and if you kind of look at the pill as like a little bit of a leech, and like I say, with all these lectures, this is not to like scaremonger anyone or like feel like you have to come off your pill. It's not at all. It's just that we're not really given any of this information when we go on it. So if we know this, then we can kind of start to support ourselves when we are on contraceptives. So the pill can sometimes deplete your body of a lot of its vitamins and minerals. So making sure that we're getting those in, obviously from supplementation, is really, really important. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about supplements later on. But it has been shown to deplete B2, B6, B12, I think B9 actually as well, selenium, folate, zinc, magnesium, and vitamin C. Now, you'll know that I've talked about those vitamins and minerals across the board for females, because at the end of the day, we're not getting a lot of our minerals in, especially kind of like zinc and magnesium, because just the quality of our soil isn't great anymore. It's not what it used to be. So we can all benefit from supplementing with those two, especially vitamin C too. If you're someone that's quite stressed and always in a high stress environment, vitamin C can be a really good one to add in. But especially if you are on the pill, I would definitely start adding those in, and I'll go through amounts in a second. It can also reduce testosterone by 50%. So that sounds like obviously, you know, a negative thing, but it doesn't mean you're just going to start going like catabolic and not able to build muscle. Remember that hormones work in like tandem with each other. So your testosterone isn't just going to like floor out and you don't have absolutely any. And especially, as I said, with females who maybe do have PCOS, like that can be quite a good thing for them, because it is helping to reduce those androgens and reduce that kind of hirsutism that they may have, like excess facial hair and things like that. So again, I'm absolutely not like completely against it. There are times when it may be needed, and that is definitely one of those times. It can alter mood and brain chemistry. There's a book called, let me think, The Pill Changes Everything. I think it's by Sarah Hill. And there was research that came out saying that it changes brain chemistry so much that women who had maybe like chosen their partner when they were on the pill and then come off the pill had like completely different feelings around them, which is a bit scary. But if any of you do want to go ahead and read or listen to that book, I can pass it on to you. But it can alter mood, it can change brain chemistry. And when we think about it, as I said earlier, like it is a steroid. So for us to, you know, think that it's not having any impact on anything else in our bodies, I mean, it absolutely is going to. There's also an axis called the OAT axis. So this is our ovaries, our adrenals, and our thyroid, and they're all linked in the female body. So when we're having issues with one, it's going to impact the other. So that's why we can sometimes see an impact on our thyroid when we're on the pill as well. And again, this isn't like across the board. These are things that can potentially be affected by it. The synthetic progestins as well can decrease calcium. So again, maybe worth getting a calcium supplement. And with a calcium supplement, you need that with D3 for absorption. So just as a little side note there. And there's also been research to show that you can have more negative gram-bacteria in the gut. So gut health is a big one. So sometimes if you're on the pill or any contraceptive, you might notice that you have more things like IBS, maybe leaky gut. So again, it's kind of in our best interest to just make sure that gut health's in a really good place as well, because remember that 70% of our immune system is in our gut. So if it's not kind of firing on all cylinders, like we're going to have issues with immunity and stuff there as well. So another one in our gut, like we have 90% of our serotonin in there too. So serotonin being like our happy hormone. So again, that's kind of coming from the gut, but that's affecting how we feel. It's affecting our neurotransmitters there as well. So everything is massively linked, and it's just kind of important that we know that, I think, and the education, I just think, needs to be there. And I think that's where like GPs and functional health practitioners need to work together a little bit more, and not just be, you know, one or the other. Like if they kind of work together a little bit more, GPs will get more knowledge around which contraceptive that will suit particular women, and just have more knowledge around it in general, and kind of ask more questions before just, you know, jumping on something. Let me just check the chat. He's like a real knowledge is paramount. Yes, absolutely. And that, I like literally think that is like the underlying thing with everything here. The more you know, the more you can kind of go in. And as I said, I'm never ever going to go against a doctor. I'm not a medical professional, but the more you can kind of just ask the right questions and make sure that the option that you're being given is definitely the right one for you. So little disclaimer, the next slide is me. And I said a little bit of a backstory because I just want to show you how different contraceptives can massively affect you, but also how they can work as just a plaster over certain issues. So I originally went to the doctor when I was 14 with really bad acne, so on my face, chest and back. I tried everything. I tried all the antibiotics, everything. So he suggested the contraceptive pill. And if you remember back to the little chart, it was that 4th generation, which I said is anti-androgenic. So it was Dianette at the time. It's actually been taken off the market now because I think it was like one of the highest blood clot risks and cancer risks, but got put on Dianette at 14. After a few months, skin cleared up, was feeling great. And this is one of the things too, like if the doctor at that time had told me that, you know, well, this is going to maybe stop your ovulation pathway and all that at 14, I probably realistically wouldn't really have cared, because when you've acne on your face, like you just want rid of it. And that's kind of the truth. But I think that's where a lot of this education needs to be going in schools. Again, a conversation for another time. But Was on the pill for years until, you know, right up until maybe like 23, 24. In that time, obviously Dianette was taken off the market, shouldn't have probably been on it the length of time I was, and then obviously needed something for contraception as I got older. So was on a few different pills, and then the implant got really popular. So I went into the GP, I think it was before I came over here. I said, all my friends are on the implant, and if you remember back to the chart, the implant is one of the highest androgenic ones. So even at that, like going into the GP and saying, all my friends are on the implant, I want the implant, it's so easy, and just being given it without any bloods being done, without any questions. Like, I just think a lot more needs done there. But anyway, went on the implant in, we'll say maybe the July or August. And by the October, this was my skin. So this is kind of me when I was on the Dianette or whatever pill I was on there. And within a few months, this was my skin again. So this was probably it on a good day. And this is just to show that when you push something so far one way in terms of obviously like acne and don't actually get to the root cause, it's going to come swinging back the other way. So if you're going into the doctors for an issue that's not related to contraception, so the most common ones are things like acne and, you know, really painful periods and maybe like hormonal issues, usually the thing they're going to give you is the pill, because as you can see here, like it is going to clear it up, but it's just putting a plaster over things. And that's why I wanted to show you this, because you're just not getting to that root cause. And when you kind of come off that, or when you change contraceptives, or when you go on another one, it's going to swing back the other way. Not to mention that the doctor at the time should have known that, okay, you've had acne in the past, going on a higher androgenic contraceptive probably isn't the best method. But at the time, like, I asked for it and I got it. So that was kind of what happened with myself. When I went to Australia. My boyfriend didn't come with me, so I didn't actually need the contraceptive side of things. So I decided to give myself a break. And 6 months off the pill, I decided, I was like, I'm never going back on it, because for me, I just noticed such a change, even in just how I felt myself. And I know a lot of girls experience the same, like when they come off it for a long enough time, they notice just this. For me, it was this like, oh my God, I feel like a new person. So for me, that was like, we're either having a baby or we're using different methods, because I was not going back on it. Anybody have any similar situations where maybe they were on contraceptives for anything other than contraception, for like acne or things, or any kind of things to add there?
Yeah, I've I've been on the mini pill for like 5 years
Yeah.
for PMS symptoms, and I used to suffer really bad migraines that got a lot worse just before my period. So I got put on the mini pill, and I actually just came off it ago. But yeah, before then, I've not had a period in like 5 years.
Yeah.
So it's been a bit of a shock to the system.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was the reason for you decided to come off? Were you just wanting to give yourself a break, or?
Yeah, I've been meaning to come off it for quite a while, just because I don't know. I thought it's probably not the best for me, and I'd like to see. It's 5 years on, so maybe I'll be all right now. And then I ran out, so I just didn't get any more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so the migraines, like that's definitely a sign of like estrogen dominance. So we'll be talking a little about that this evening. So hopefully some of the stuff we talk about this evening will definitely help with that. And that's the thing, like migraines are a really common, as I said, symptom of PMS, because a lot of us are low in progesterone, or kind of like calming hormone, and a lot of us are very high in estrogen, just because of lots of things that we can't like detoxify it properly, because of maybe like gut health, or you know, there's obviously excess toxins now in the environment and all like that. But yeah, hopefully some of the stuff we go through this evening, Tori, will definitely help. And even like that, like going in with kind of migraines and PMS symptoms and just being handed the pill, it's like, it just sometimes gets to me. I just think there needs to be a lot more questions asked. But we'll do our best this evening. I'm not going to go overhauling the NHS this evening. I'm honoured to have a PCOS and endo. Okay, Emily, so you have both PCOS and endo. Do you mind me asking? I know you're on the chin. Sorry, actually, I won't ask. Where are you? Yeah, I know you're on the chin. I'll even, if you want to message me after, Emily, I'd be interested to know which one they have you on for both of those, and how they're kind of helping manage symptoms. Because like I said, we're going to get into endo and stuff as well. Like sometimes the pill is a form of relief, because I know, and I'm going to get rid of that picture, girl, sorry. sometimes endo, obviously the amount of pain experienced with endo can be really, really severe. So if you can get any relief from that and in form of the pill, then I'd say to some of my girls here, like, absolutely go on it while we kind of work on things in the background in terms of like nutrition and lifestyle. So it definitely can be a form of relief. So what can we do to kind of support ourselves? So the first thing, as we've kind of just been talking about, is like figure out the main reason as to why you're actually on your own contraceptive. Like, is it because of contraceptive reasons, which is absolutely fine. If you've maybe been like myself, Victoria, maybe gone in with other issues and you've just been put on it, maybe just kind of have a think and maybe see if there's another option that may be a little bit better. And as I say as well, track and become aware of your own symptoms. So you need to kind of know how you're feeling throughout the month. If there's any certain times where you have different symptoms, maybe with mood, with cravings, all of those things, so that you just become a little bit more self-aware as to how yours is affecting you. And if you do decide then to come off it, there are other, obviously, like non-hormonal options for contraception. So there is the copper IUD, as I mentioned earlier. With the copper IUD, it's, as I said, difficult sometimes to get in. It's a little bit painful to get in. And if you do have endometriosis, I wouldn't suggest copper IUD, only for the simple fact that estrogen can upset your endo a little bit more. And if you have excess copper, sometimes estrogen and copper will fight to be like detoxified. So if you're not able to kind of detoxify that excess estrogen, it's going to maybe upset your endo a little bit more as well. So I probably wouldn't suggest it for endometriosis. There is the female diaphragm as well, but I think like, I feel like it's more of like an American thing. I'm not 100% sure. Like, I don't hear of a lot of people in the UK getting the diaphragm. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, it's, you know, it's an easy-ish method, but sometimes it can kind of cause irritation because a lot of them are made from latex. And then there's the FAM method, so the fertility awareness method. So this is basically where you track your temperature for 2 months. You see where that temperature is increasing during ovulation, and obviously you like avoid unprotected sex like during those 6 or 7 days. Now, if you are going with that method, I would definitely suggest you need to work with like a practitioner who is trained in fertility awareness method. I have a very good idea about it. We can do a little bit of a module on it if you want. But I would definitely say if you are using it to either get pregnant or avoid pregnancy, maybe work with like a one-to-one specialist on that, because it can take a while getting used to. Even at that too, like taking your temperature first thing every morning consistently can be like practically quite difficult. Like, I've tried it myself, and even just waking up, remember to, like, before you even get out of bed, take your temperature. It can be like a little bit unrealistic sometimes, so it can take a while getting used to. For me, it's like, if you have a general idea as to when you're ovulating, I mean, avoid things for that like 5-6 days. I mean, that then there's just condoms. There's always those two. So there are different methods, but again, it's going to be very much what suits you and what suits your lifestyle. And that's kind of where it comes down to you individually. You're on the progesterone depot injection, okay, for both. Yeah. So I mean, if that's the one the doctors put you on, Emily, and you're finding it fine for managing things with PCOS and endo, then that's absolutely spot on. So supplementation, now a few of these you will remember from past lectures, and some of these are like across the board. So this isn't just for anyone on contraception. Get yourself a good multivitamin. If your multivitamin has a good amount of the B vitamins in it, then that's absolutely sufficient. You don't need to get both. But I would definitely go for a good B complex. I'd also go for zinc. I would go with 30 milligrams. If you are potentially following like a vegan diet, you might be a little bit higher in copper, because you're going to be lower in zinc, and those two kind of like go in tandem with each other. So you can go up to like 50 milligrams. Selenium as well. Now, you don't need to supplement with selenium. Like, if you have 5 or 6 Brazil nuts a day, that's going to be enough for your selenium. Magnesium, a big one. You'll never hear me stop talking about magnesium when it comes to just overall female health. So making sure you have a good magnesium glycinate in there. And I've just noticed there's a typo there too, so ignore that. I would go 300 milligrams across the board. If you are someone that suffers, again, with quite high stress, you can split it up and have 300 milligrams in the morning and then 300 milligrams in the evening before you go to bed. It's going to really help with sleep along with your zinc as well. And folate is one too. So folate's going to be one that you get in there if you are on the pill, especially because it can deplete it as well. I don't have vitamin C in there. again, if you have a multivitamin going in, your vitamin C is going to be there. But vitamin C is definitely one to kind of increase there as well. Any questions or takeaways before I move on to the general conditions? Real good.
I have one, sorry.
Go for it.
In terms of when to take the vitamins, because all the vitamins I've got say you should take them with food, and sorry, I've got a very affectionate cat here.
You're fine.
You should take them with food and stuff like that, but it's like, you know, is there a better time of day to take them? So I know that like magnesium you're supposed to take and it's supposed to help you sleep, so do you take it in the morning? Do you take your B vitamins in the morning because they're for energy? Like, does it matter?
Yeah, so I would say, like, obviously the first thing is adherence. So you want to be just taking them at a most convenient time for you. For the magnesium and the zinc, I would definitely try and take those before you sleep. Anything else, I would just take them with your first meal of the day, because I find myself, if I take any vitamins without food, like, they make me quite nauseous. Like, some of them will have that like nauseous effect on me. So it'll sometimes say on them, like, obviously, as you said, take with food. I would just take them with your first meal so you remember them. So take them with your breakfast, and then your magnesium and your zinc I would take in the evening about like an hour before bed. And that's, as I said, going to kind of help you sleep. Your cats are loving this presentation. Perfect. Going on then, girls, we are moving on to endometriosis. So again, a really vast topic, one that again needs a lot more research, and one that is quite complex as well, because it can take up to 8 years. I think between 8 and 10 years to actually get diagnosed, because the main the main symptom of endometriosis is like severe pain. So sometimes going in with severe pain, it'll just be kind of put off as, you know, PMS or really heavy periods, and it won't actually be diagnosed for a long, long time. It can also be genetic, and I think it's like 1 in 10 girls now who'll actually experience endometriosis. The thing with it is as well, it's not a hormonal issue. It's more of an immune response. So hormones will trigger it. So things like estrogen will make it worse, but it's not actually caused by a hormonal disorder. So that's why with endometriosis, following things like an autoimmune diet can really help alleviate pain, which we'll kind of go through now in a second. Medical options as well. So you can get the tissue removed, obviously, with a laparoscopy. But this is where, again, like I would like to see the medical world working more with functional health practitioners, because you'll probably get a laparoscopy, the tissue will be removed, which is great. But then they'll just say, obviously, like, come back, you know, whenever it is, like next year. They'll not give you any advice on how to manage symptoms with lifestyle and diet. Well, not as I'm aware. I'm not kind of branding every doctor with the same brush, but I think there just needs to be more of like a collaborative work in there with the functional health space and doctors, so that yes, you can get the tissue removed, but then you can also manage symptoms in between the next laparoscopy. With the pill as well. So this is where the mini pill could be quite useful for girls with endo and want to just, as I say, get that relief from symptoms and from pain, because it doesn't have estrogen in it. If you remember from the little chart we had, the first two is progestin only. So that's where the mini pill could come in as a good relief from pain. If you go in with endometriosis and they put you on the last two, just say no, because they have estrogen in them, and they're gonna further make your symptoms worse. So please do not let any GP put you on those last two. So that being kind of like the 4th generation and 3rd generation. Now, when it comes to endo, gut health is a big thing that we need to look at. Because, as I said, it is an autoimmune disease. Our immune system, there's like 70% of that in our gut. So we do really want to be making sure that gut health is in a really good place. Now, two things I would say to my girls with endo is that you need to potentially reduce and cut out is gluten and cow's dairy. So I know this is one of those where and I'm the same, we don't want to cut those things out sometimes, but it can really help with alleviating pain and alleviating symptoms, and just getting your gut health in a better place for that. So if you do have it and you did want to try kind of cutting out gluten for a few weeks. It doesn't have to be forever. Cut it out for a few weeks and see if you get any kind of relief from your symptoms. And it just kind of helps put out, like I call them like inflammation fires. It'll help put out a few fires and hopefully relieve a few symptoms as well. With this as well, as I said, you can follow like an autoimmune diet. So it's going to be more of like a paleo diet. Now, I wouldn't say from the get-go, like just start following a paleo diet, because that is, you know, it can be quite restrictive. And sometimes you go in all guns blazing and try everything. And then, you know, it's very hard to stick to. So I would, from the beginning, just try and reduce gluten. If you can cut it out, as I said, for a few weeks, definitely do. And cow's dairy as well. So you can swap, like you can have things like, I know it's not the best, but you can have things like mozzarella, goat's milk, like feta cheese, and just see how you get on. With nutrition as well, so high amounts of omega-6 can trigger it. So if we remember back to our nutrition module, like omega-6 and omega-3 kind of like fight with each other in the body. So if omega-6 is really, really high, omega-3 is going to be quite low. And we all know, like, we're all quite low in omega-3, because I'm the same, like we don't all eat enough oily fish, we don't all get enough kind of like healthy fats in. So trying to kind of increase those in your diet is going to help with inflammation and going to help lower that omega-6 as well. And then vitamin D is massively underrated when it comes to endometriosis, because vitamin D, again, is there for immune function. And it was kind of like during COVID that vitamin D was like literally this miracle vitamin that everyone was jumping on, because everyone realized how good it was for immune function. So if you're not already kind of taking vitamin D, I would definitely add that in. And like that too, across the board, guys, because let's be honest, you are all kind of in the UK, the weather is not that great. You probably aren't getting a lot of sunlight. So adding in that vitamin D, especially now in the winter months, is definitely a good idea. Zinc is going to go in here as well, but zinc will not be absorbed properly if your gut health isn't in a good place. So again, you can see how these things are all linked. Making sure gut health is in a good place is definitely crucial for girls with endometriosis. There's been studies as well to show that protein can encourage the growth of the tissue as well. So obviously protein is there for our bodies to kind of build things up, same as estrogen. So not that you shouldn't get your protein in, but maybe not having it at that like kind of like higher end of the scale, and maybe just scaling it back a tiny bit to see if you again get any relief. And with a lot of these things, it's very much kind of trying like what suits you and what kind of is your tolerable level of things. Environmental factors. So this is one where my girls sometimes roll their eyes at me as well. So environmental factors, like we want to try and reduce our toxic load as much as possible, because when we have all these kind of toxins coming in and these, like we'll say, synthetic estrogens coming in, obviously our body's not going to react well to them in any in any given time. But especially if you have endometriosis and your estrogen, you're already trying to detoxify that estrogen. So I am not telling you all to, change absolutely all your cosmetics and everything like that, because I don't even do that. It's impossible. At the end of the day, we can say that everything in our environment now is toxic, but making little swaps. So, even if it's like using a natural deodorant, or one of the big ones is heating food in plastic containers. So even if you can swap to like glass containers or throw it in a bowl before you heat it, just little things like that, that's going to really help kind of reduce that toxic load where possible. Skincare, I think with females, it's obviously really difficult because we all use like different skincare. We all have different kind of shower products, and like I'm the same. There's no way that all of my things are in any way natural or paraben free, but just where you can make those little swaps, definitely try to. I'm not sure if any has seen on like TikTok and social media there a while ago, like the carrot salad, like people know, like shredding carrots and putting olive oil on it was like to get rid of estrogen. That's actually one thing from TikTok that isn't a fad. It's actually quite beneficial. So eating carrots or just getting carrots into your diet is really good at kind of getting rid of excess estrogen. Again, kind of helping to clear that to help with symptoms and pain there for endometriosis. And then phytoestrogens, so things like your fruits, vegetables, and grains. So if you kind of imagine phytoestrogens like coming in with like little cloths to like mop up the excess estrogen, but then we need to obviously get rid of that. So if you are constipated, and girls, when I mean constipated, I mean like if you're not going to the toilet like at least once a day, that's constipation. Because a lot of my girls, a few of them told me, I'm not constipated, I'm going regular. And when I looked at when they were going to the bathroom or how many times they were going like once every 2 days. And I'm like, girls, that is constipation. Like that's not quote unquote normal, and they'll say, no, but I've always been like that. And I'm like, yeah, but still constipation. So making sure you're going like at least once a day, if not twice a day. So making sure, again, you're getting good fiber in, and leafy greens are going to be a big one here. So things like broccoli. You might have heard of the supplement DIM, which is quite good for kind of helping with excess estrogen, but it comes from broccoli. So getting a good few leafy greens in with your diet, and just kind of increasing your fiber intake overall to make sure digestion's in a good place there is going to help get rid of that excess estrogen. I've talked about this before too, progesterone and stress. So progesterone is our hormone that a lot of us are a little bit low in, and when it's low, like estrogen then is a lot higher, and we can't kind of come in to calm the effects of that. And stress depletes that so much. So if you haven't been back in the last modules, I think we went through stress management strategies, but I mean, you all know how to kind of try and de-stress, like adding in things to your day, maybe like just journaling in the evening, winding down in the evening, you know, doing some small little bits of breath work when you're at your desk, just to try and kind of take you out of that fight or flight and reduce stress as much as possible. Now, this supplement here, NSA, I've talked about this before, but this is so beneficial for anyone who has endometriosis. So there was a study done, and I'm not sure, let me see if I have the amounts here. Yeah, actually, do. Sorry, 20% of females actually cancelled their laparoscopy after taking this NSA. So I would sometimes give this to my girls across the board. But if you do have endometriosis, this is what supports our livers basically. And it's like the precursor for glutathione. So really helping with liver detoxification. So again, helping that pathway of getting excess estrogen out. So the study was that they took, and I want to read this here because I don't want to get it wrong. So they took 600 milligrams 3 times a day for 3 days in a row, for 3 months, and that's where 20% of females kind of cancelled their laparoscopies because they saw such good results and kind of obviously managed their symptoms. So I will send links to those, Chloe, if anybody wants the supplements and things. I usually just get most things on Amazon, so I'll send across links, but a really good one to add in there, and a really good one to add in as well if you do have quite painful periods. But as I said, a good one to add in across the board for kind of liver detoxification. Any questions or anything I'm missing or people want to go over? We're all good. Fab. And again, girls, as always, like any questions or anything you want me to cover in future sessions, just pass it on to Chloe and I'll definitely get it in for you. PCOS, I'm not going to try and keep you too much longer, but PCOS, so again, there's between 12 and 21% of women who have it, but 70% are undiagnosed, which is absolutely crazy. There are 4 different types, but the most prevalent is insulin-resistant PCOS. So again, there's research being done, like it's kind of like a chicken and the egg situation. We don't know if it's the fact that PCOS comes first and then insulin resistance follows, or it's the other way around. So if we can sometimes manage insulin resistance, that's going to obviously help manage your PCOS hopefully as well. So again, with the PCOS, like endo, I mean, if you are on the pill to help manage symptoms, that's absolutely fine. But if you can be working on these things in the background in terms of kind of diet and lifestyle, it's going to make your symptoms even more manageable and just really help with things. So again, if you are going on the pill, you don't want to be going on those last 2 generations. So the first 2 generations for this one. So they are highly androgenic. So going on things like, you know, Yasmin, Yaz, those ones that are more there for skin and don't have progestin in them is going to be the route you want to go there. You will potentially see a 14% drop in BMR. So this is where it can be a little bit more difficult for girls with PCOS to drop fat. It's not that you can't. But there probably just needs to be different little protocols there in terms of nutrition to help get you to where you want to be. And it may just take a little bit more patience and a little bit longer. Carbs around your training. So there's always, I think, like, not myths, but there's always things coming out saying like if you have PCOS, you need to, like, you know, massively reduce your carbs. And for me, like, that's not the case. You can have carbohydrates, you can have them around your training, and also I would say have them in each meal, but making sure you're getting like a balanced meal in with those. So getting in a good fat source and getting in a good protein source, so the metabolism of those is going to be kind of slowed down and you're not going to get that big blood sugar spike. But again, I would say that across the board for a lot of females, and just making sure you're keeping hormones balanced like across the board. Blood sugar management is going to be a big one. So things like getting for a quick walk after meals, and I think we discussed that before, is going to help with blood sugar management. And myo-inositol is a brilliant supplement as well. So it will act like the natural version of metformin. So if anyone's heard of metformin, it's there to kind of, again, help with blood sugar balance. Myo-inositol is a really good replacement and a natural replacement for it. And the other one is berberine. So berberine's brilliant as well. The only thing with berberine is I'd say to, only be on it for 12 weeks and then kind of come off it for a while as well. So those two are really, really good. With training too, there's a little bit of research to say that going more kind of 10 reps and above, so not putting your central nervous system under massive amounts of stress. But again, I think the research probably a 1%, if even, difference. So if you did want to just try kind of higher rep work and see how you feel and how you get on, it's there to be tried and it's there to kind of see how you feel on that. And then the last ones here as well. So things like spearmint tea are there and have been shown to reduce those androgens. And like we talked about endometriosis. So again, getting kind of rid of excess estrogen, getting your phytonutrients in, getting your cruciferous vegetables in, and then avoiding kind of BPAs and plastics. So the things we just talked about in terms of lifestyle factors. The only other thing I'd say about PCOS is sometimes girls with PCOS will have a flipped circadian rhythm. So they'll be quite wired at nighttime and then quite sleepy in the morning. So adding in 1 to 3 milligrams of melatonin maybe at nighttime just to try and kind of get you wind down and help you sleep can help with that too. And that can definitely happen with really high stress levels as well. So again, if you're cortisol and you maybe have adrenal fatigue, if your cortisol is really high at nighttime when you want it to be low, that's where you're going to find that as well. You're going to be really wired at nighttime and then find it quite difficult to get up in the morning. So adding in that melatonin, 1 to 3 milligrams is potentially going to be quite beneficial. I feel like I'm racing to this, girls. Sorry, I just don't want to keep you on really long. PMS. So with PMS, loads of us experience it, like the usual, migraines, cramping, mood swings, cravings, all of the above. A lot of the stuff we've talked about will help manage it. And most of the time it's because we are estrogen dominant. Now, estrogen dominant, we're either going to be estrogen dominant because we can't get rid of the excess estrogen, which I've kind of touched on. So that's going to be either through your digestion, through your gut, or through your liver. So making sure those two are in a really good place is going to help with that. But also this is where we are not producing enough progesterone. So again, that's going to come from things like being highly stressed and being, maybe quite inflamed. So getting in your omega-3s, getting in your healthy fats, and really just chilling out and really knowing and learning how to manage your stress is going to really help with that. So you can kind of see how everything is linked. Supplementation across the board. So all of the ones I've already mentioned, and if you want a list of those, I'll pop it across to Chloe so you can kind of go and get them and the amounts that you need. But things like your zinc, your magnesium, especially, that NAC is really, really good if you do suffer with quite bad PMS symptoms. Your B complexes as well, really good one to get in, and a good omega-3 are the ones I would definitely suggest. When we look at stress reduction, again, stress management. So trying to avoid certain stresses can sometimes be unrealistic, especially if it is things with work. And I mean, look, we all have stressful lives. You're, maybe trying to get kids out in the morning or have a really highly stressed job. So trying to avoid those is really unrealistic. But if we can manage things as best as possible and also not add fuel to the fire. So if you are, getting up in the morning, the first thing you're doing is chugging back a black coffee, you're skipping breakfast, you're highly stressed getting out in the morning, you're going into work, you have a highly stressed job, and you're maybe getting to 12 or 1 o'clock, that's just a recipe for disaster. So making sure in the morning you're trying to at least have a decent breakfast going in there, having your coffee after your food, little things like that are going to really help manage those cortisol levels and help with inflammation as well. So just little things that you can add in rather than saying that you need to avoid everything, if that makes sense. We've kind of talked about phytoestrogen. So again, that's your toxic load in the environment. And trying to make little swaps where and when possible. But when we say that, I would be looking more from a nutritional standpoint first, making sure things are in check there with stress management and nutrition. And then you can kind of look at environmental factors if you really wanted to. And I've written down 3 months here because with hormone issues, it can take 3 months to see any type of change. And I know we talked about it, I think in the first module, where our follicles will take like 90 to 100 days to mature. And that's why anything that we do now, you're kind of going to see the results of that in like 3 to 4 months. So with everything, be patient. So if you are struggling with PMS symptoms, you know, quite bad, Tori, I know you mentioned migraines. If you are struggling with those estrogen dominant kind of side effects, give it like 3 to 4 months. And especially if you have just come off hormonal contraception, it's probably going to take a little bit longer. So it is annoying because it can feel like you're riding like a massive roller coaster, but it will settle down. Give it at least kind of 6 months and hopefully things will settle down. But yeah, that is kind of most of the things we're going through this evening. Do we have any takeaways or anything you want me to cover in the next module, or how are we all feeling? I feel like I raced through those last two, girls, sorry.
For me, it was really interesting. So I'm probably at the other end of my contraception journey. I think the last time I had my coil, they said that would likely be perimenopause, sort of HRT. So I guess for me, it's just things like, as I get to that stage of things, do I need to be avoiding things that are going to deplete my estrogen, because presumably I need more of that? Do you know what I mean? Like I'm like, broccoli is kind of my cornerstone food stuff at the moment because it's really good for protein and things like that. But if it's going to start messing about depleting things that I don't want depleting, do I need to find alternative sources?
Yeah, so we'll be going through perimenopause as well. Now, I don't like, with things like broccoli, it's not going to come in and deplete like estrogen where it doesn't have to. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be excess that's there that it needs to probably get rid of. But we will be going through perimenopause and everything there as well. And showing what things you can do to try and like, mitigate that like decrease in estrogen and things. But no, I wouldn't say you have to avoid broccoli. I'd say like when you're having it, it's more there to kind of get rid of the excess rather than it's not going to just completely wipe out your estrogen stores. So I wouldn't think that's.
No, it's more like how I think that's the thing. It's the extremes, isn't it? Your body always finds balance, but if you are putting stuff into it that it can't cope with, that's when the imbalances come. It was just it's really interesting. I find I've been on some form of contraception since I was 14, so that will be 30 years this year. I've never had anybody take my blood or family history to see whether what I've asked for is suitable. And I was on one of the ones that was really high risk of blood clots, and they tried to put me on something else. I had a really bad reaction to it, but I actually went back and said, no, can you put me on that one, because I liked that one and it worked for me and I don't care about the risk. But I think that's at an age when you're like, I just don't want to have a baby. I don't care about blood clots because that's not going to happen to me because I'm invincible. So I think it is, but it is, isn't it? That's like you say, you're like, absolutely. I just want to get rid of my acne. I just don't want to have a baby. I don't care, blood clots, whatever, long haul flight's not going to happen. I just, so it's just, it is a real knowledge is power. And I think hopefully things are changing for the next generation coming up. But I think to be able to say to somebody, could you just check my blood to make sure that this isn't going to turn me into a complete mad person? Because that's how I felt on the mini pill. The mini pill, I was raging angry for about 3 weeks out of the month, whereas normally I only have about 2 days where I want everybody to die.
Absolutely. You're so right. I think even when talking about things like perimenopause and things like that should be what we're being given information around now, because I feel like you get to that perimenopause menopause stage and we're all just expected to like go through it. There's no real education around it or things you can do to like pre-mitigate things. And I loved what you said there too, Rebecca. It's like it's very much person dependent on where you are in your life, what you kind of want. And as you said, like if you're past having children, you don't care as much about side effects and things like that. And that's why it's so important to know like all this stuff is so like individualized, as I said at the beginning. Like it's going to be very much what suits you as well. But I think that the education definitely needs to be there a lot more, and hopefully, as you said, the next generation will hopefully get a little bit more, because I feel like it is starting to get a bit better. But the more you dig into this stuff, you're like, how were we not, and as you said, even just offered bloods to see where things were sitting at a certain time. Tori, super helpful.
I'm being super noisy about my perimenopause because I'm not going to be a psychopath. I've decided I'm not going to go into a cupboard and sit and cry, because that's basically what my mum did to deal with it. And I'm like, nope, that's not going to happen to me. So I want all the blood work and all the tests and all the everything. So yeah, I think it is really good. I think having these conversations, like I said, it's a real knowledge is power moment, is to be able to go and go, can you please test my adrenal function and things like that, so that I can, you know,
go forward.
This is going to work for me. So yeah, that's fab. Thank you.
Absolutely, you're very welcome. And I love that too. It's kind of like, it's very much like, as you said, knowledge is power, but kind of empowerment as well. Like just knowing that you can go into your GP and say, no, like I want this done because you know this. And I think just taking charge of your health as well is so good, and just being at the forefront there and kind of being in front of it is brilliant. Alex, haven't touched birth control since I was early 20s. This pill had a huge effect on my mental health. Yeah, zero information given on how it affects me. Yeah, absolutely. Like, and that's the thing, it comes down to marketing too. Like, you know, when you hear the mini pill, it's like, oh, the mini pill, it's so cute. Like, let's just take it. It's great. It's same with like the implant. Oh, it's so easy. You don't have to do anything. It's there's never any marketing or advice given around, well, it's great, but look, here are the drawbacks. And I think that's where, you know, GPs, if they just sat you down and said like, okay, you can go in this one might cause a little bit more water retention, you might have this, that, and the other. This one, you might not get the water retention, but you may have like, you know, a little bit of excess oily skin. Like, they need to just give you like the pros and cons so you can actually make like an informed decision. And I think that's kind of the main issue. Last again, I'm grateful I haven't had to think about birth control at all, but at least I won't be going and confusing. But yeah, absolutely. So having the knowledge there is definitely one. And Tori, yeah, like keep me updated on the migraines and how you're getting on. I kind of love to hear how you're getting on over the next few months. But girls, thank you all so much for joining as always. We'll have our next one then next month. And as always, as I said, if there's anything you specifically want me to cover, I will absolutely add it in. So yeah, thank you all so much, and I will see you on the next one.
Thank you. Really helpful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, girls. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.